So over the years here, I have been asked various questions about my Sunday lessons, and not only about various teachings that are in them, but also the process of their creation. Some have asked about how I plan them out to get them all on the calendar for a year. Other questions have been posed around where I tend to find the majority of my resources that will support the message. Others have inquired about my writing process, whether there's a specific style or structuring of the message and its delivery. And then there's the question about where the inspiration comes from, that enables me and any minister to write one of these lessons every week. And so over the last few weeks, in a very gentle way, these questions, memories of them were just kind of swirling around in my mind. And with today being my last lesson as your senior minister, they were really present for me as I entered into this past week of preparations. I began to wonder, especially for today, where would that inspiration come from? How would it show up for me? And of course, I believe that underlying all inspiration is God. God is the source of all of that. But Spirit does use different messaging, and it also uses different messengers. And sure enough, Thursday afternoon, less than a day before I would sit down to start writing, the inspiration came. It seems that someone from the church, who was not named, was talking to someone else from the church, and they were talking about me. And apparently, one asked the other something along the lines of, well, how do you think she's done in her time here? And the response that was forwarded on to me, which was done so very clearly stating that the response was given as high praise, was, she never said anything stupid and she never put me to sleep. I praise indeed, and I will take it. I'm going to take it. And so now, having sat down on Friday morning, and the first thing I did was confirm that I have offered 403 lessons so far in this ministry. And my prayer right now is that in about 25 or 30 minutes from now, my record will be intact. So if you see anybody starting to lean next to you, nudge them, make sure they're awake, because here we go. Here we go. Let's start by spending some time with the scriptural verse that supports today's message. It is the foundation for our message. It comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 12. Now, in this chapter, Jesus is speaking, and he is speaking to his disciples, who at that time were feeling somewhat unsettled and even quite fearful about what would become of them, knowing that Jesus was soon going to leave this life. And Jesus said, truly I tell you, the one who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these will he do. The last part of that statement, and even greater works than these will he do, is something about which a lot of spirited discussion and theological debate has taken place. I mean, take those words literally. It means that you and I, anybody, can do greater things than Jesus did when he was here. And yet, how many church denominations and their respective theologies are you aware of that actually believe that and teach it? And for many, I think it would be deemed blasphemous to even think about that. And then there's just the simple perspective of reality. It comes into question, that verse comes into question, because it's not every day, at least it hasn't been in my experience, that we can walk down the sidewalks of downtown Traverse City and see people getting healed by someone just passing by and a shadow hits them. Not once have I come across anybody walking across the bay. Restaurants, I have to believe that restaurants in this town at one point over the last 8.5 years have come down to that one last serving of their daily special. And I've not read one article about one chef who was able to take that one daily special and multiply it to feed hundreds more who wanted it. And Lord knows I would have told you by now if I had achieved the miracle of turning water into wine. Wine. It's worth a shot. For the 404th time. So what happens when with scriptural text, when the literal word is not what we see around us? What happens is it gets interpreted, and in so many different ways. And such is the case with John 14:12. And so I wanted to offer a few interpretations of that scriptural verse that I found on a website that's based in the United Kingdom. And it's appropriately called Think Theology. Now, almost 10 years ago, the blog that I found was titled, "What are the greater works?" What are the greater works? It seems that in an earlier posting, there was a question posed as to what Jesus really meant when he said that you and I would do greater works than he did. And instead of the comments offered in response to that blog's question, focusing on and answering the question, 100% of every response offered focused on what he didn't mean. So this follow-up posting that I came upon offered a few options from the website author for us to consider. And so the first option is really the most straightforward. It offers literally that we would do works that are more impressive, more dramatic, more awe-inspiring and wonder-inducing than Jesus did. And that's not garnered much traction. Because it's hard to imagine what could be more impressive than what Jesus accomplished in his life. And it's also hard because what I just noted a moment ago, we don't see a lot of these kinds of greater works taking place in front of us every day. Now, option two is basically what someone may believe that would counter the conclusion of option number one, and that being the lack of seeing these works taking place. Because now one might say that to go with option one, just shows a lack of faith, a lack of believing in Jesus, believing in his teachings, those words of his, the one who believes in me. So option two says, just because our reality isn't matching up with Jesus' words affirming how we're doing greater works than his, that is not a reason for us to rationalize a failure for us to believe in him, a failure for us to not believe in what he taught. It is not a reason to lower our beliefs to meet our to meet our experiences. Rather, it's a reason to increase our faith, which in turn would increase our experiences, bringing them closer and closer to what Jesus did. The third option is one I've heard a lot. And it's one that says that when Jesus was talking about greater works, he was talking about works that would be greater in quantity and not quality. In other words, in all likelihood, most of us would have more than just the 3 years that he had in his ministry to offer our works, so we could do more of them. And we, of course, could take them to a greater geographical spread than he had for himself. So this option eliminates making any kind of qualitative comparisons between Jesus' life and ours. A fourth option that some use to interpret this verse is to do so as applying only to his audience at the time, applying only to the disciples. They would go off when he was gone, and they would do greater works, but those works would end at that first generation, and they would not continue after that. The last two options that were offered were noted as being those that would likely not garner much support at all. And the first of those was that maybe the words were just a prophetic statement that wasn't meant to predict the future, Maybe that was just a statement to motivate some radical obedience at the time. And the other was, perhaps Jesus was simply wrong. Maybe he was just wrong. So as is typical, and I find fascinating in a way, one short scriptural sentence can be interpreted in a multiple of ways, all of them different. And so I'd like to offer one more in support of the remainder of this lesson, one that is based on spiritual principles that Unity teaches, throw in a few of my personal beliefs, and it's also one that I have seen in my reality, right here and through you. So as I often do in moments like this, let's start with just one word. If we are to know what greater works we can do, it would be beneficial to know what the word works itself means. So I went to one of Unity's reference books for metaphysical interpretation. It's called The Revealing Word. It was written by one of our co-founders, Charles Fillmore. And I found two commentaries that he put forth about the word work. In the first one, he spoke to the object of work. And he wrote, the true object of all work is to express the powers of one's being and to benefit mankind. And that's the object of our work or our works, is to express the powers of one's being and to benefit humankind. Mr. Fillmore then turned to what he called work in consciousness. And it reads in part, man does the works that Jesus did by entering into the same consciousness that he was in, the realization of oneness with the Father. Now, personally, today I would substitute God or Spirit for Father, but get the point. It's very striking to me that Mr. Fillmore did not define the word works. He did not offer a definition. He did not provide a listing of what those works are. There was no specific, works to do, greater works to do list in the glossary of the book, such as healing people and raising the dead and walking on water and so forth. But what was there was the statement that all of our works, no need for a list or definition, all of our works are the exact same thing. They are the expressions of the powers of the individual being brought forth and expressed to benefit all beings. And to me, what makes them greater works, what makes the powers in our being divine in nature, is when they are grounded in spirit, when they are grounded in prayer, and then offered from a belief and a conscious awareness of the oneness that we share with spirit and with each other. You see, to me, this perspective, it eliminates any debate about how many years we will have to do our works. It eliminates any need to discuss geographical measurements or to create an Excel spreadsheet and just list every work that we do as it gets done. Because greater works are meant to be a part of who we are right now in this moment, where we are in this moment. Because none of us is guaranteed the next 3 years. None of us is guaranteed the next 3 minutes. But we each have the present moment, and then the one after that until it's our time to depart this life. And the invitation that Mr. Fillmore put before us was to use each one of those moments to allow our way of being, to allow our life to be one of great works, one lived in an expression of spirit on this earth, for this world, and for the betterment of all. And oh my goodness, have I seen these expressions manifesting in my reality over the last 8.5 years through you. With no offense to Mr. Fillmore, I'd like to offer some lists. A few ways that this has happened, and it all begins through some of those divine powers, those qualities that I've witnessed coming forth from you, manifesting in so many different ways and forms, and touching so many hearts. Doing so in ways that I would place side by side with what Jesus did in his life. And the first of these is what I'm calling inclusive hospitality. You know that guest card that we attach to the outside of our welcome packets? Not once have I ever received one of those cards filled out without it noting how welcomed and accepted the person felt when they walked in the door through the time that they left. And that's not only first-time guests on a Sunday morning. I've heard it from extended families and friends who have sought me out to tell me so as they've been attending memorial services for a loved one. I've heard it from family and friends of those who have come here to witness a wedding or a christening. I have heard it from people who have gone out of their way to come into my office after having encountered one of you out on our labyrinth and tell me how nice you were. I've heard it from organizations who have rented our facilities and were honored with your presence as you supported whatever activity they were offering here. And perhaps most importantly, and what I believe underlies your ability to expand into all of those other people, is that I have seen up through this morning that welcoming acceptance being offered to each other when you arrive. It doesn't matter if you are relatively new to this ministry or you are someone who has been here since you helped found this ministry 38 years ago. Another reality of mine has been the presence of your selfless service. To me, selfless service refers to acts of service for which there is absolutely no expectation of receiving anything in return. You do the act of service because you want to offer it. That's the end of the sentence, period. You know, there is such a spirit of this kind of service here, and this goes way back, long before I arrived in 2013. All anyone has to do is read through the history of this ministry. Take a look at what it took to grow from a study group eating pie around someone's kitchen table to what it has become over the years and is today. To try to realize the hours of volunteer service that it took to build this campus, supporting its celebration services and activities and events, caring for its grounds, helping with its day-to-day operations, providing the leadership that every ministry needs. I could go on and on and on. And I will. But in an expanded way. Because when I arrived back in 2013, it wasn't too long after that you, not me, you called forth those 5 core values that have been our guiding lights all these years, and one of them is service. And you made it clear, you wrote to me in writing that you wanted that service core value to mean going beyond these walls as well. And so if you've ever read the definition on that card, it became, we share our gifts with our local, national, and global communities. And the behaviors that are on the back of those core value cards, there's behaviors that guide you and me as individuals as well as this ministry. And the behaviors attached to this ministry in order that we can live up to what we say service means to us are to align with community events and organizations in service, to sponsor outreach programs, and to foster relationships with our interfaith colleagues and communities here in Traverse City. So sit back and relax while I take you down memory lane a little bit. Community events, organizations. How about how we all came together and brought the world-renowned author and spiritual leader Gary Zukav out to the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa, where nearly 500 people came to hear his message, and then another 100 showed up here the next morning for a more intimate gathering and experience with Gary. We're offering our campus in support of local nonprofits like the Traverse City Friendly Garden Club and the Human Nature School. And we've had children's musical recitals here. We've had entertainers coming out to the amphitheater through the Crescent Woods programs. And we've had creative folks from all over the state that came here to participate in a holiday craft fair. And then we've gone out volunteering for the annual Parade of Homes and being a sponsoring vendor for the Oriana Market's annual block parties. And then there's outreach. Outreach that has absolutely touched the local, national, and global communities. 15 different organizations that I found in my records, and people that have been touched by you. From flooding in Houston and a water crisis in Flint to an earthquake in Nepal. From homelessness and addiction and abuse in Traverse City to the Unidos Disaster Relief, that was an organization formed after the 2017 hurricanes hit and destroyed so much of Puerto Rico. From helping to feed the hungry in our own community to supporting a worldwide hunger project. You have been living expressions of what outreach means, and you have changed a lot of people's realities for the better because of it. And then we have our relationships with the interfaith community. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for the way that you supported me when opportunities came my way to be a face and a voice of this ministry in our town. From speaking at gatherings like the Church Women United and being asked to be a panelist on a discussion panel for peace as we celebrated the International Day of Peace. Joining with my local colleagues in co-creating and then speaking at interfaith services for the Good Friday and the Thanksgiving holidays. In 2017, being the coordinator and joining with others again to speak at our state theater downtown, where interfaith community and community leadership gathered to offer our overall community a service of peace during a time where there was such unrest in our city and across this country. And not too long after that, yet another time that we all gathered together for a vigil of hope and justice out at the Unitarian Universalist campus. And then, of course, the chance to be the face and the voice of this ministry, proudly, so proudly, while attending both our regional and national unity conferences, and then during my time spent serving on the board of our regional offices. Now you might think, gosh, that pretty much says it all, as the TV show or the TV commercial says, but wait, there's more. More might be a good way to segue into the realities I've seen through your next quality in expression, and that is your lavish, lavish generosity. Now, this is where I'm going to narrow my comments and speak strictly about generosity as it appears in the form of money. And then I'm going to narrow that down even further and speak only about money that does not pay for our everyday operations. Okay, does not pay for that. Now, starting at the beginning of 2013, our church had $22,000 of savings in the bank. Now, there was a lot of other money in the bank that was designated for specific things, so we couldn't spend it on anything else. So in savings, we had $22,000. So just remember that. Also beginning in 2013, up through today, there's another list that I'd like to read to you. New storage shed, new roof, new hot water heater. Unity branding program inside, on the grounds, in print, and online. Interior painting, new platform lighting, updated office furniture, new and up-to-date office computers, new sound booth computer, new soundboard, new hearing assistance devices, new microphones, new keyboard, new band speakers, electrical wiring and amplification equipment, sanctuary remodeling, this lectern, the Christ candle, the window frames, the flat screens, overhead, wall lighting, beautiful artwork in the back that I get to look at every Sunday. Environmental audits completed, all all indoor and outdoor lighting converted to LED. An attainment, all it took to reach the highest attainment possible within Unity's Earth Care program. Driveway resurfacing, new landscaping outside, sidewalks repaired. A paid 2 months sabbatical for me. And then lastly, we also had a $76,000 mortgage liability, and then added to that a $30,000 kitchen remodel loan liability. Now, I didn't have the time to go back through 8.5 years of invoices and financial records to total up what all of those improvements cost. But I would guess it would be close to at least $30,000 or more. $30,000 more in addition to the annual $120,000 that we received to keep the doors open and the lights on. And that combined debt, the 76 and the 30, that $106,000 of debt on our books, as of this morning, it is $11,202. Now, how in the world do you start with $22,000 to spend, then spend, incur expenses, and pay off debt to the tune of at least $125,000, and end up, as of this morning, with double nearly what your savings were when you started? Our savings are now right around $42,000. I'll tell you how you do that. You do it by living and expressing spiritual principles of prosperity, by always affirming God as your source first, which then opens up so many windows of opportunity for you to be the lavish, generous people that you have been. What an amazing time. Growth and achievement and fun these last 8.5 years have been. And as the song offered before the lesson said, I truly believe, and I'm affirming right now, there's no turning back. There's no turning back. There is a turning of the page occurring, but there's no turning back. You see, the song said that there's no turning back when we feel Spirit move in us. When we feel Spirit move in us. When you felt Spirit moving in you, that has been the catalyst for all that we have experienced together. And for me, the movement of Spirit is just another way of saying that it is the movement of love. With love, I believe that love, that divine, unconditional love, that is the greatest energy, most powerful energy that is in us. And I believe that it is also that which underlies and strengthens every other energy and power that we have to offer. It is the catalyst that moves us so that we can dream our dreams and then do what is ours to do to make them our reality and share them with the world. And I am so proud and, of course, so blessed to have been able to help us bring some of those dreams true. Some of those dreams came true. See, Jesus brought divine love to life by the way he lived his. You have changed mine for the better because of the way you've lived yours while in my presence. Beginning with my tryout Sunday back in October of 2012 and continuing to this moment right now, you have loved me through more experiences than you know. But please trust me when I say that it's the truth. There will be one more experience filled with love that you will not see, but I want you to know, because it has to do with this. My name badge. My name badge. You see, I have saved every name badge I have had since my work in ministry began. They are reminders, they are representations of the various roles and the various churches that I have served. I keep them in a bag together, and I keep that bag in my office, wherever that office might be. So later today, when I finish up here later in the afternoon, I'm not sure I'm gonna miss that very much. And later today, when all of my to-dos have been checked off this afternoon, and I am back in my home, I'll place this name badge in that bag. And I will do it in the same way I have all the others, as a prayer, and with reverence and humility, gratitude, and a deep awareness of the privilege that it has been to serve you in our beautiful town as the senior minister of the Unity of Traverse City. I do love you so very much. I carry you in my heart, and I hold you in my prayers always. And with that, I will simply say, until we meet again, God bless you.